Hello and welcome to Dollar for Dollar. My name is Heather. Today we are going to discuss the 50-30-20 rule. What does that exactly mean and what does it mean for your budget as you are trying to lay out what you should be spending every single month? So if you are brand new to the channel, this is Dollar for Dollar and we discuss personal finances, everything from investing to buying a home to how to create a budget. And that's what we're going to discuss today. So I personally don't adhere to the 50-30-20 rule. And there are a couple of reasons for that. But I think it's better to show you a real world example as to why that is the case for me personally. And I just want to say this from the get go. The most important thing when it comes to your budget is just doing it. That's right. The most important thing you can do is just starting a budget and then sticking to it. Okay. So they're both important. You need to create one, but then you also need to stick to it. So follow through is extremely important. So the 50-30-20 rule, what does that mean? You may have heard of it before, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it. Well, the 50-30-20 rule says that after taxes, so your take home pay, you need to take that and spend 50% on your needs, 30% on your wants, and then the other 20% towards savings. Now, I'm going to use an example here and we're going to make a couple of assumptions. So the first assumption being, let's assume that you have a two-income household, okay, and that you are both paid twice in a month. So you'll look here and you will see my income. I've got 4 paychecks and we are going to use $5,000 again as our take-home pay for nice round numbers to make this whole process easy. This is the number we're going to use. So I'm going to first start by saying half of my $5,000 income is $2,500. I need to be putting that towards my needs. So let's look at that as our first example. So I listed out several things that they would consider to be a need according to the 50-30-20 rule. Essentially, you have your housing, you have your food, you have any sort of utilities that you have, and then you also have things that you are contractually obligated to pay. So for example, you are going to see debt in this category if you have any. So if you have a credit card, whatever the credit card minimum is, not the balance, not what you owe, just the minimum, what's absolutely required every single month, that would be put in here. Just like in my example, I put in a credit card minimum and said $35. The same thing goes with a car payment. A lot of people have car payments. I personally don't. I don't think you should have a car payment. That is one of the fastest ways to deplete your wealth building tool, which is your income. So let's say you have a car payment and that's $307 in this example. You would put that here because you are required every single month to make that payment, or of course they will repossess your car and, all sorts of other bad stuff will happen, like dinging your credit. All of that would be in here. So we've got, car payment, car insurance, obviously the gas for a car, that's extremely important. Credit card minimum, like I said, a phone, any prescriptions that you have, those are important because again, you want to take into consideration what's necessary for your health and your safety. You also have to have childcare. If you have that, that would be a need. Obviously, you need to have your child somewhere while you're working. And then obviously a child comes with some essentials like maybe diapers and wipes. So I put that here too. And then the next category, so your wants. Your wants bucket is going to include things that you absolutely don't need, but they are nice to have. Internet, whether you like it or not, it's not a necessity unless, of course, you work from home and you are required to have internet. That would be the only time I would call internet a need. Subscriptions, magazine subscriptions, TV subscriptions, all of that, that would be considered there. Cable, don't need cable. Date nights, dining out, cosmetics, hair. You can claim it's a need. It's not. It's a want. I always like to have a miscellaneous category somewhere in my budget as like a catch-all for those random things. I would put that here. And a gym membership. Again, it's a want. You don't need it. You can work out from home. And then lastly, savings. Now, what's interesting about the 50-30-20 rule is with savings, they also count your debt repayment in this plan. So like I said, in your needs category, you're going to put the minimum that is required because you have taken out a loan, you've signed off on that loan. However, any extra that you're going to pay towards your debt, this goes in the savings or that 20% bucket. So emergency fund, debt repayment, retirement, college fund, all of that would be in that 20%. Now, if you look over here to the right, you will see I have this colorful wheel and it shows me my $5,000 income. And then it'll show me what I've actually spent on those buckets. And what's interesting to note is that I have spent a good bit, $3,000, over $3,000 just on my needs right here. And why is that extremely important to note? Well, according to the 50-30-20 rule, I should only be spending $2,500. And again, this is just an example for you. It's, not my actual budget. But if this were a very real world situation, I could very easily see this being a typical breakdown of somebody's budget. The same thing goes with wants. Wants, we said 30%, but as you can tell, I've only allocated 9% of my income. If you just look here to the right, $473 I've put towards wants. And then savings is at 25%. And again, there's two reasons for that. One, when you have debt, you want to be hyper focused on two things. One, building up an emergency fund, a very basic emergency fund, and then also paying your debt. So what I find to be kind of counterintuitive with the 50-30-20 rule is that you're trying to do multiple things at once. They want you to have a minimum of 3 months savings for emergencies, and they want you to be paying off your debt, and they want you to be doing a bunch of other things and enjoying your life as if nothing's going on. The problem with that is you can't focus on too many things because it distracts you and you lose motivation. You need to be hyper focused on one thing. I would say have a basic emergency fund, have $500 to $1,000 set aside as step one. Just have that ready because life will happen. But then you need to be paying off your debt quickly, okay? You need to be dumping as much as you can towards your debt repayment. If I were trying to focus on retirement savings plus a college fund for a child, I'm going to be all over the place. And personally, I would rather only spend, a year and a half paying down debt versus 5 years. So rip off that Band-Aid, really focus in on what your goal is for yourself. I talked about this in my last video. What is your goal? You need to be asking yourself that whenever you are looking at your budget. The first thing I would start cutting out of my wants. Do you need to dine out? No, probably not. You should stop doing that while you have debt. Delete it. Date night. Sorry, honey, we're staying home. Delete it. Cable. Don't need cable. We can delete that. Cancel that. There's tons of ways you could start making cuts. And I already have $273 now just by doing that I can start putting towards my debt repayment. So again, the 50-30-20 rule, it's a guide. It's not, set in stone for you. The most important thing to note when it comes to your budget is you need to get started. You need to get started and you need to really focus in on what your goal is. I would say to be in a great spot, try to live off half your income. Live on half and then throw the other half at your debt so you can get rid of it quickly. And this is kind of how my husband and I were able to pay off our debt in 4.5 months. We paid off $30,000 in 4.5 months. Take a really hard look at your budget. And if that's important to you, make it a priority, okay? And also, just remember, it's temporary. It's not forever. You will not always be in, super intense mode and trying to pay down debt and not going out, living on, far less than you actually make. You want to get to the point where you have more options. And the way you're going to do that is by paying off your debt. So if you have debt, I would say try to live off 50% and then throw the other half at your debt so you can pay it off quickly. And I know you can do it. It is possible. So thank you so much for watching. That is the basics of the 50-30-20 rule. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like. Please also subscribe, and I will catch you on the next video.